So a lot has happened in the NBA in the day leading up to free agency starting. First off, I was on a plane, got off, and all of a sudden Collin Sexton is a part of the Hornets. Okay, so we've got Collin Sexton and a second round pick heading to Charlotte for Jusuf Nurkic, which may sound a little confusing until you actually break it down. Collin Sexton was kind of a part of a Jazz guard room that had too many people, right? They just added Walter Clayton. They just added Ace Bailey, who isn't really a guard, but he's got guard skills. And they have Keontae George. They've got all these guys that can get big minutes at the guard position that they're trying to grow. Isaiah Collier. And while Sexton may have been one of the best, if not the best guard they had, he's also a little bit older, probably doesn't fit the timeline that they're making. And, but yeah, let's see, what does he bring to Charlotte? Well, while he was in Utah over those 3 seasons, he averaged 17.5 points per game, 4.2 assists, and 2.5 rebounds. Now, those are his numbers as a member of the Jazz. His percentages, he shot 39.8% from 3, which is pretty elite, and 48.8% from the field, which is also pretty elite as a smaller guard. This last season he was in the 86th percentile in points per game, 83rd in assists per game, and 88th in 3-point percentage, and 89th in free throws made, so per game. That is really impressive, right? I mean, he had all those great numbers, those great percentages on a really bad team. So him being able to carry that much offensive load on a bad team is pretty great, right? He's a member of that 2018 draft class that has all those great guards, the Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Brunson, Trae Young. He's probably in that next tier of guard. Probably his best role would be as a sixth man, which I would assume is what he's going to do in Charlotte. He can definitely play alongside a LaMelo Ball, and we'll probably see that a lot, but I'd imagine that the Hornets are pretty set with LaMelo as their 1 and Brandon Miller as their 2. Unless I'm forgetting somebody, but I think that's what it's going to be, especially since Tre Mann is probably leaving. We'll get into him later. He averaged a career high last year in 3-point percentage and free throw percentage. His nickname says a lot about him as a player. It's Young Bull, right? So he's a tenacious defender, even though he's undersized. But he's a fighter, and he'll give everything that he's got whenever he can, right? I really like him. I would have liked him on the Mavericks, but him going to Charlotte does make sense. He can play that sixth man role behind LaMelo, play off of LaMelo. It might be a good spot for him to grow, and I kind of like what Charlotte's doing right now. Their center position's a little bit weird, but I didn't see Nurkic as a long-term center for them anyway, and with Mark Williams failing his physical on the trade to LA, maybe he wasn't really a long-term option either. So, getting rid of Nurkic, right? They clear up more minutes for Moussa Diabate, who actually had a great season. Showed that he's a really good rebounder. Even if he's a little bit undersized for the center position, he can rebound really well. And Ryan Kalkbrenner, I think, is a very interesting option out of Creighton that they got in the draft in the second round. So they're clearing up minutes for those guys. Maybe, I would imagine they're going to sign somebody to play big man in the free agency, which starts today at 5, which is crazy. I'm going to have to make another video on that. The Jazz also sent a second round pick, which makes it a little bit weirder for me because you're giving up the best player in the deal and you're giving up the pick, whereas they don't get any picks in return while they're taking on Nurkic's contract. But the reason that does make sense, right, is because Jusuf Nurkic is an expiring deal. So he'll be off the books next season. Well, not next, in 2026, 2027, that season, right? So the Jazz will be clearing up about $19 million in cap space by picking up Nurkic and letting him walk in free agency. I can't imagine they would want to bring him back. They have enough bigs as it is, right? He'll be behind Walker Kessler, who's arguably their best player right now. Kyle Filipowski is a young piece that has a little bit of promise. And John Collins, even though he's not a center, he can play small ball 5. And, I mean, he's a really good scorer. I've always been higher on John Collins than his value has been. But I do think, he can play a big role, right? And so Nurkic is going to be behind those guys. You could argue Taylor Hendricks. I would rather play Taylor Hendricks if I'm the Jazz. But they're very different players. But another big 4. Yeah, that's kind of, well, all right. I'll get into Nurkic a little bit more. As a member of the Phoenix Suns and the Charlotte Hornets, he averaged 10.1 points per game, 9.7 rebounds per game, and 3.3 assists per game. That pretty impressive facilitating numbers, but the rest of his numbers are way down from whenever he was in Portland. He shot 49.8% from the field and 27.7% from 3, which is not super great. You don't really want your big man shooting under 50%, and you definitely don't want them shooting a lot of 3s if they're under 30% from 3, right? 30% is bad too, but it's below that. So he's very inefficient, not the same player he was pre-injury. I remember when he was in Portland, he was kind of dominating for those 8 games before he got injured. That terrible, I forget if it was foot or leg, but it was kind of brutal, one of those brutal injuries that kind of like the Tyrese Halliburton one. But yeah, I don't know. He's probably not going to do much in Utah. I wouldn't be surprised if he got bought out so he could sign somewhere else, but also he might just hold on to him to let his contract expire next year. So yeah, I understand it on both sides. I like it a little bit more for the Hornets just because they get a player that's more usable and actually good, whereas the Jazz are just clearing up space, probably to make a move at somebody next year. So I don't know. I'm not going to grade it. We'll see what happens. I like it for both teams. Next, we'll talk about DeAndre Ayton because he got bought out from his contract with the Portland Trail Blazers, and I am still really high on DeAndre Ayton. He's probably going to get a pretty low-value contract, probably an MLE, right? So, I don't know. Yeah, as a member of the Trailblazers, he averaged 15.7 points per game, 10.7 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 56.9% from the field, and he shot 16.7% from 3, which is kind of funny because I remember whenever he was at Arizona, right, he was kind of billed as someone who could stretch the floor too. And you saw it there. He looked pretty good from 3. But now that he's been in the NBA for a few years, his three-point shot has really gotten a lot weaker. If those of y'all, some of y'all might not remember, he was a starter on the Suns when they made the finals. This feels like a lifetime ago, right, when the Suns were a respectable franchise. But DeAndre Ayton was really good for them, and I don't think he's actually gotten any worse. He also, while he's been in Portland, hasn't had a reason to fight to win, because they've been a team that's been trying to capitalize on their youth, their young players, more so than winning. And DeAndre Ayton doesn't really fit into whatever timeline they're trying to make. So I really like him leaving this team. He's got really good size, good touch at the basket. It's a great combo, whenever you're able to be big and just finish shots. That's just underrated. It's super simple, right? But that's what you need to win. Yeah. Let's see. I think he can make a real difference on a contender. A couple teams that I jotted down are, you might not like to hear a couple of them, but Los Angeles Lakers, right? They need a center, and he is a center. And I think he would make a huge difference on that team. It'd be interesting pairing him with Luka, number 1 and 3 picks from the 2018 draft class. But I do think he fits pretty perfectly over there. I would really like to see him on that squad. The Pacers, I put, if y'all don't remember, back whenever he signed his max extension with the Suns, he didn't actually want to sign with them. He just got matched. he actually chose to sign with the Pacers. And the reason this might be interesting is because, Miles Turner kind of underperformed in the finals. And Ayton might be wanting a smaller contract, right? He just wants to contend. Doesn't really need to... Sorry, my dog is making some noise. But anyway. Yeah, I think he would be a great fit over in Indiana, and it seems like it's a place he might want to be. I don't know if he's just a fan of the project over there. Hold on, I'm going to let my dog out. Buddy, yes, let's go. You can go. Sorry about that. Let's see. But yeah, DeAndre Ayton on the Pacers, really like it. Honestly, if I was him, I would want to go either there or LA. Boston is another option. This one, I don't know if he would want to do unless it's a multi-year deal, right? He could rehab his value there because he'd probably be way more important. After the Tatum injury and they offload Drew Holiday, they offload Kristaps Porzingis. They need a new big man after getting rid of Porzingis. I think he would fit in there. He'd be a good option, good sort of second or third option behind Jaylen Brown and Derek White, and then eventually third or fourth, right? Either Derek White or him behind Tatum and Brown. I don't know. I see that as a potentially interesting option, even if he wouldn't really be joining a contender immediately. It would just be hoping that Tatum can, hold on a little bit after his torn Achilles. He was in the 77th percentile in points per game, 97th percentile in rebounds per game, 91st in blocks, even though it's only one block per game. I mean, still 91st percentile among all NBA players. It's pretty good. Those are all from this past season. If you wonder where I'm getting these numbers, any per game stuff is from Basketball Reference, and then any percentile things are from Shot Creator. So I really like Ayton. Anybody who needs a center should be trying to get him because he's going to be cheap and very good. James Harden signed a 2-year, $81.5 million extension. I'm not a fan of this. I'm a Mavericks fan, right? So we had our little beef with James Harden whenever he was a Rocket. And I've never really gotten over my disdain for him. But he is a 35-year-old, right? 2-year, making more money per year than Kyrie Irving, even though I personally believe that he is not as good as Kyrie. Honestly, even Fred VanVleet, I'd rather pay Fred VanVleet that money than James Harden right now. But Harden played in 79 games last year, which that's really good. 72 the year prior. And, best ability is availability. He could be a difference maker on a team. However, he's not the most efficient player right now. He's about league average from 3-point range, even though he's a pretty big shot chucker from 3. And then 41% from the field isn't terrible. That threshold of terrible is below 40%. He's really close to that. And he also, I'm pretty sure, led the NBA in turnovers per game. So he probably led the NBA in turnovers since he played 79 games. 4.3 turnovers per game. Really bad. You mix that with 8.7 assists. You think 8.7 assists is really good, but then it's really just a 2-to-1 assist-turnover ratio. There was that huge rant on Mavs TV. I forget who it was, but the system rant, he's the problem, he's the reason he keeps moving teams. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. However, some stats do love him. He's 93rd percentile in points per game, 99th in assists per game, 96th in steals per game, 83rd in blocks per game, 82nd in rebounds per game, 96th in 3-point attempts, 99th in free throws made. And then 50, then just to show his shooting, like he just shoots a lot, right? So 58% and true shooting percentage and 52nd and 3-point percentage. So like any league average player can do what he does, I think, as long as they just get the shots up. But I don't know. I'm kind of going in on James Harden. Sorry. I do think he is still a good player. While I will bash him just because I am who I am, he is still a good player, and you can't really count him out. I think he could really help a contender. Clippers are not a contender. They're just going to overpay for him for a couple of years. He'll be 37 by the end of that deal. Who knows? He might be shooting 30% from three by then. God, I say you can't count him out, and then I'm counting him out. Anyway, Tre Mann, Charlotte did not give him a qualifying offer. While he's been a part of the Hornets, he has averaged 12.6 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, 4 rebounds a game, 1.3 steals per game, shooting 44.6% from the field and 37.7% from three. All this with some injury issues, right? He's had a pretty bad back. Got a herniated disc in his back, which kind of killed his season before it really started. He had a really good start to the year in 13 games. Averaged a career high in points per game off the bench. He's had starting stints before, but he averaged a career high in points as a bench player. And he was very efficient too. Also, he was one of those guys that was rocking like the long shorts, like the Allen Iverson type shorts. That was pretty cool. So, and cornrows too, man. Yeah, Tre Mann was a cool player for those 13 games. Then he got a herniated disc. But yeah, he can be a spark plug off the bench for any team. I would definitely look into giving him the taxpayer mid-level or any mid-level. Yeah, natural scorer. Really like Terrence Mann. Tre Mann. Terrence is fine too, but he's not available. There have been rumors about LeBron James being traded. Apparently, a lot of teams are not interested, which, shocker, he's 40, right? You trade your future for him, and then you only get a couple years of contending before he's retired. Who knows if you'll even get a couple. There have been rumors about the Mavericks trying to go after him, and I hope that's not true, because then we'd just be building the Lakers roster that's been underachieving since the 2020 season. But yeah, if the Lakers were able to get off of LeBron and get a lot of promising pieces for the future to build around Luka, would be another heist for Rob Pelinka and the Lakers. I doubt this happens. There have been rumors, but I don't think LeBron will be traded. If he is, I just hope and pray it's not the Mavericks. I like our current roster. We don't need LeBron at age 40. He finally showed that he can decline and play this year. I don't want to see what that looks like in 2 years. Even though he's still an all-star caliber player right now, right? Did great at the Olympics. He's LeBron James. He just is an amazing player. I hope he can keep it up. Just let him keep it up in Los Angeles with Bronny. Okay. Last thing I'm going to get into, Dorian Finney-Smith, one of my favorite players ever. He was a Maverick for the first, I think, 6, 7, maybe 8, 7, I don't know, that range years of his career. I loved watching him grow from being a summer league invite to being a camp invite and then being like the last roster spot he got. And, I at first was confused, right? I was a lot younger and I was like, but what does he really do? He doesn't score that much. Well, doesn't need to. He's an impact player. Very good catch and shoot guy. One of the best defenders, I would say, in the NBA. I think he's been robbed of a few all-defense selections. Love Dorian. Great personality. I was really sad when we got rid of him, even though it was for Kyrie Irving, right? I mean, we obviously left that deal on top because Kyrie's been incredible for the Mavericks, and I'm assuming will continue to be incredible for us. But I love Dorian. Pains me to say that it looks like he's going to go to the Rockets. I have my disdain for the Rockets. It's hard to keep after James Harden and Dwight Howard and Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook. After that whole saga ended and then they became these young guys, it's been kind of fun to watch. But I try to keep my rivalry brewing, So him going to the Rockets will be really conflicting for me if he is able to do that. But yeah, 4-year potential offer. I think he'd be a great fit. If I was the Rockets, I would definitely try to do this, especially since they're apparently trying to contend right now, right? They just traded for Kevin Durant. They have all of this young talent. Still have Fred VanVleet. And I think Dorian that'd just be an amazing pickup. Kind of like, the Thunder picking up Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein before making this championship run. This Dorian move, honestly, reminds me a lot of that. He's the same sort of caliber player in my mind as Caruso is. Just a couple of little things. 90th percentile in the NBA this year in three-point percentage. I'm pretty sure it was like 41% from the field, or not from the field, from three. If you look at his shot chart on Shot Creator, it's basically green everywhere. He's probably the best corner shooter in the NBA. Because he's a high-volume corner shooter. So his percentages might not look the same as some other people, but, it's over 40%, and you can't really make a player like him. He's incredible shooter, incredible defender, incredible personality. I think whoever gets him will be really lucky to have him, and if he's a Rocket, I'll have a hard time rooting against them, But yeah, that's kind of the whole roundup in the NBA. Right now, we're just a few hours away from NBA free agency, and I'm very intrigued to see what happens. Looks like D'Angelo Russell is going to join the Mavericks on a 2-year, $12 million deal sort of thing. Lakers are reported to be going after DeAndre Ayton, and I'm really intrigued by that, actually. I really like DeAndre Ayton, and I think he can make a huge difference. But yeah, let me know what you think. Did I miss anything? Yeah. Peace out.